Welcome in one and all. As always, I am PALADEVIN, and today I did want to talk to you about my 2023 runner-up. That's right, guys. If you remember, Sea of Stars won my game of the year, but the runner-up was an incredible masterpiece of its time. Honestly, it was the Resident Evil 4 remake. It hit us so hard in 2023. Honestly, I was actually surprised. The game dethroned Resident Evil 2 Remake for me. This is the gold standard, in my opinion, for games in the genre, for Resident Evil in general. Of course, you guys already know my opinion on that. This was a game that just took me for a ride. Like 100%. And just in case you don't believe me, yeah, there's, some evidence floating around my channel. If you have an opportunity, go ahead and check it out. I always keep it on the channel as a reminder for what Resident Evil 4 did. Yeah, shameless plug aside, let's get to it though. Honestly, Resident Evil 4 knew exactly what it wanted to be. It wanted to be a love letter. It wanted to be a reimagining to the original GameCube classic that just blew us all away, guys. The game, y'all know, that changed and set the standard for single-player gaming, and of course the survival horror space moving forward. Yes, it did spawn the action era of Resident Evil as well, which I know a lot of people might frown upon, but I love. Honestly, you know what? I've talked about the game enough in review mode. You guys have heard me talk about it in review mode. Now I want to move on to something fresh. If you're like me, guys, you have done everything there is to do. I have Resident Evil 4 on multiple platforms. I have it on Steam. I have it on Xbox, PlayStation. Guys, I've done it. I've run it all. I've done the shooting range. I've played the game's campaign, got the achievements, had me some new game plus fun, destroying everything in my path. And the likeliness is, if I have, you guys also have. Now, one might say, just based off of that we've explored everything this game would have to offer then, right? Well, I'm glad to say that we would all be wrong in this assumption. You see, the Biorand crew is at it again, and this time, Resident Evil 4 has a fully functional randomizer. Now, what is Biorand, I hear you ask? Biorand is what I would call a unique experience. What likely started as a passion project has honestly turned into a whole new way to experience Resident Evil games. They started strong with the classic trilogy, allowing us to change everything from items, enemies, doors, and even, honestly, the characters that you play as. Fast forward to now, though, and they have once again allowed seeds to be generated, but this time for Resident Evil 4. I myself shuffled the seed that would generate seed 796072 as my first run on the rando, and man, this puppy does not disappoint. I had everything from crazy cowmen to boss sections that featured 2 bosses at once. The chaos was definitely here, and initially I wasn't prepared for it. While the game generously started me out with a red 9, I spent the entire run not getting another weapon drop. These needed to be either bought or traded for, and that makes you strategize even more, trust me. Now, hitting the open village section also was wild. What would normally be one chainsaw and a bunch of regular enemies, it turned into a mad dash. There were cowhead dudes everywhere, there were regenerators, and even flying bugs were here, man. It was crazy. It was a nightmare. But guys, it was my kind of nightmare. After the initial wave of chaos, I did finally get settled in. When you can pretty much expect the worst at every door, it just puts you in an almost trance of sorts, an incredible focus, if you will. I was trying to harness the force, essentially. I don't really know another way to explain it, but it did feel like after a little bit, all right, we're all in, let's figure this out. Most of the run, of course, in my case, featured the Red 9, but I was lucky enough to get a shotgun as well early on. The rest was up to Leon's ability to dodge like it was going out of style. Of course, variables like Del Lago came into play. Oh, and spoilers. Yeah, he's a giant orca now. Now, once I got Ashley, though, things started to cook. Lucky for me, very few enemies were turning into crazy heads throughout the entire run. Unlucky for me, though, the enemies were usually turning into regenerators instead. Now, even with Ashley in tow, nothing really seemed impossible to overcome, and that's what was really nice. And that to me is what makes a good randomizer in general. Sure, there are going to be a lot of situations where you need to adapt, and not a single room in this rando was like the original. Of course, barring Ashley's whole section or the chair walk. Of course, they can't really have enemies there or we'll just die. But what I did take away from this one is that you get out what you put in. I didn't complete a lot of merchant contracts, so I spent a large part of the game with limited resources. But when I finally struck enough, did enough to get that beautiful TMP, I honestly felt a huge, colossal surge of accomplishment. It was like I was playing the game for the first time again, and that is really hard to replicate. Rando 796072 is my first RE4 randomizer to run, and for that, it's a 10 out of 10, baby. The game feels brand new, and if you like Resident Evil 4, I suggest getting this thing going. Now guys, that is of course where I'm gonna leave this one. The run itself was wild. I hope you enjoyed the footage. It was just chaotic throughout, and yeah, it encourages me to generate yet another seed just to get a little more crazy. But as I said, we'll leave this one here. Of course, if you need to stay up to date with all things on the channel, you guys know what to do. Hey everyone, I hope you liked that one, because I totally did. And of course, if you are enjoying all things and want to stay up to date with retro achievements, trophy talk, achievement talk, or any of the other shenanigans we get up to on the channel, maybe consider hitting a like, subscribe, and leaving a comment. Have a good one, guys.